Okay, let's try that. Let me know if that works. Can you hear me now? Okay. Sorry about that. I've got the phone set up tonight, so that's why we're running a little late. It took a little bit to get everything figured out with the phones again. I remembered it at one point, but then I forgot, and then I now remembered again how to do it. So, phone lines will be open, so you can call in tonight, and we can talk about the Southeastern Conference. Is it hype or is it not? We've been told it's the best conference in America, but it seems like that's not the case anymore. And of course, what we're going to start off with is Diego Pavia, the quarterback from Mighty Vanderbilt. And I don't want to misquote anybody. So let me go ahead and put this up here. Vandy QB Diego Pavia eviscerates the Big Ten. You want to play with the best? You don't want to play with the Big Ten. You ignore those calls. It's the SEC. It's like week after week, you're going to get beat on. The Big Ten, you're not going to get beat on with Purdue and Nebraska, which is a bold statement for Mr. Pavia, considering Mighty Vanderbilt lost to the next to last team in the Sun Belt Conference, Georgia State, this year by double digits. So he's concerned about how tough the SEC is and how weak the Big Ten is. I have a feeling Nebraska would probably beat Georgia State. Now Purdue, I've got to give you that one. Ryan Waters was a terrible coach, terrible hire. I said it at the time. I said you're just bad hire. They should have went for an offensive-minded coach. They had offensive weapons. They went defense. It didn't work. They got Barry Odom now. I'm still not sold on Barry Odom either, but there you go. So this is what Diego Pavia had to say. Again, man lost to Georgia State. FBS finished next to last in the Sun Belt Conference. Had one win in the Sun Belt Conference. One win in the Sun Belt Conference. Their other two wins came out of conference, and one of them was Vanderbilt, led by Diego Pavia, which, interesting enough. I figured, took a look at this, looked around, found some nice quotes here. Diego Pavia led teams have been outscored 104-7 against Big Ten teams. 104-7. Against Wisconsin, he was 6 for 19, 52 yards, a 2.7 average, one interception, a QBR of 4.3. 4.3. He did a little better against the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Of course, they didn't score any points, but he went 2 for 5 for 10 yards with a 2-yard average and a QBR coming in at 20.4. Diego Pavia to sit there and call the Big Ten soft. The Big Ten has ripped a hole in your ass about the size you could get a football in. You should be able to fit one in there. So let's before you start going off, let's take a look. I want to bring this up. My friend, your friend, our friend, Bret Bielema, aka Bret Bielema. So what he had to say after Diego shot his mouth off. Diego seeking a 6 year of eligibility because he has no shot in the NFL, and he knows that. We voted unanimously as Big Ten coaches to stay at 9 and actually maybe have an SEC challenge. I was told the SEC coaches voted unanimously to stay at 8 and not play the Big Ten. But then some people pop off and say what they want to say. If the SEC is, and this is confusing for me. So SEC fans, if you're watching, you want to call in, listen, it's not against the SEC fans. I hate this argument. I really, really do. And somebody's going to have to help me figure this one out. You're the best conference in America, but you won't play 9 conference games. And apparently you're afraid to play against a Big Ten team. You're afraid of a Big Ten challenge. Why is that? If Diego Pavia, who is the spokesperson for the SEC this week, apparently, if he's so certain that these mid-tier Big Ten teams are soft, why did Vanderbilt vote against a Big Ten challenge? Look, you can play Nebraska. Vanderbilt will line you up with Purdue. And then see what you can do. I mean, congratulations, Diego. You beat Alabama last year. It was a big win. We loved it. Everybody was happy. We saw you guys carrying the goalposts down to the river. Congratulations. You ain't it, son. You ain't it. And I'm going to let you know right now, we know what your history is. We know what your history is when you play Big Ten teams. So maybe get Greg Sankey's dick out of your mouth a little bit before you start popping off. And I want to bring this up. The SEC, again, best conference in America, guys. Best conference in America. It's so tough. So tough. This is the bowl records from last season, if anybody's interested. Big Ten went 11-6, won the national championship game, had 2 teams in the Final Four, 6-3 playoff record. And by the way, one of those losses was because 2 Big Ten teams had to play each other. SEC 8-7, 2-2 playoff record. By the way, 2 of those losses, 2 of those 7 losses, South Carolina and Alabama, 2 teams that they cried and cried and cried deserved to be in the playoffs. South Carolina lost to Illinois. Alabama, who everybody said Alabama got screwed. Alabama was screwed over when the ACC got 2 teams in. Alabama lost to Michigan. And look, I ain't talking shit. Ohio State lost to Michigan. I know. Ohio State lost to Michigan. Rivalry game. Lost by 3. But we got to the playoffs. Alabama had nobody sitting. Had Jalen Milroe, who we heard deserved, Heisman consideration, and he was going to go, high in the first round to start the season. I'm sorry. You can't claim in that Alabama-Michigan game that Alabama had people sitting, because they didn't. They did not have people sitting. You played a Michigan team that was downright the worst Michigan team I've seen since probably Rich Rodriguez was coach. That's how bad that Michigan team was. So don't tell me that Big 12 went 4-5 with no playoff wins. ACC went 2-11 with no playoff wins. Bring on 5-11. Look, if we went with a 5-11 format last year, do you know how many Big 10 teams would be in it? Do you know how few Big 12 and ACC teams would be in it? Because guess what? Even with a strength of schedule, and we know they brought in a mathematician from Google. Praise the Lord. Google is going to save college football now. They brought in a mathematician for Google. Well, they went back and did a history on it. The Big Ten actually gets more slots in the playoff using a 5-11 model. The SEC gets more at a 5-11 model. And the selection committee, the new rules, the new strength of schedule, they're going to favor the Big Ten and the SEC. And nothing is going to change that unless the Big 12 or the ACC is able to produce a national champion. That's what it's going to take. It is going to take a national champion from the ACC, a national champion from the Big 12, and even then, I believe there would still be bias on the selection committee to the Big 10 and the SEC. Is it fair? No. Is it right? No. But it is what it is. It is what it is. All right, let's get to some comments and questions in here. Again, the phone lines are open if anybody wants to call. Let me make sure. Yep. Phone lines are working. Steel Austin's here, mowing after dark. Let's go. Hello, Steel, Utah fan. Bob Swanger, my Nittany Lion brother. Good to see you, Bob. A lot of people got him as odds-on favorite to win the national championship this year. I don't know. Shonsky's in the house. Says, what's up, guys? Good to see you, Shonsky. Great. How about yourself? MBM muted Moen. Yes, I apologize. Early on, Moen was on mute. Jackson Johnson, moderator extraordinaire in the chat. Thanks for stopping by, Jackson. Jackson, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this SEC thing. In fact, I will put the link in chat there. If you want to join, you're an Alabama guy. I want to hear from you. What do you think of this? Is the SEC ducking? Because look, I'm a Big Ten guy. I freely admit it. I support Big Ten teams. I support the Ohio State All right, I'm back. I don't know if I'm live, but I am back. And as soon as I can figure out if I'm live or not, anybody in chat, let me know if I'm alive. We will see here in a second. I'll check on my phone where I've got actual internet. Well, what do you know? I am live. Thank you. Sorry about that. Storm's coming through and it knocked the power out. Sorry about that. I had to wait for everything to reboot. And yeah, I had to wait for everything to reboot. It be like that sometimes. It take that generator does not have that instant kick on when your power goes out. It always gives me that minute, and now I get to go reset every single clock in the house. I don't know if the SEC guys put that through there or what. Hit me with an EMP from space or whatever. But yeah, I had to take a Tarleton break. You're right, Jose. Again, I apologize for that, guys. It was not my intention. Thanks to everybody who is holding in there, who did hold on in there. Do appreciate it. Let's see. And I lost where I was at. Moen is frozen. Moen was not frozen, but Moen was a little froze up. Okay, I got to open the phones again, so bear with me just a second. All right, Google Voice. And then I'll get back on my rant. Maybe have to take a little sip of whiskey. All right. Let me see. Present. Share screen. That's what I want to share. And add to stage and then remove from stage. Okay. Jackson, if you're still watching, brother, I'm going to put that link in there again. I do want to hear from you, especially from you, if to give us your feedback on Alabama. Because as I was about to say, I've heard for the last, 20 years, how great the SEC is and how the Big Ten is top heavy. It's only Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State, and there's nobody else. I can think of one SEC team not named Georgia, Florida, or Alabama that has won a national championship. So how can you accuse the Big Ten of being top heavy when the SEC is equally as top heavy? Are there mid teams in the Big Ten? Sure. Absolutely. There's mid teams in every conference, guys. There's a lot more parity in conferences like the Big 12, especially the Big 12. Probably the most parity of any conference in college football. The ACC, usually dominated by Florida State, Clemson, Miami on off years. Now, see, numbskull news, Oklahoma and Texas were not in the SEC when they won those national championships. I was told I couldn't include Washington as a national champion if we stripped Michigan, so we can't include Oklahoma, Texas. So LSU is one, the Joe Burrow year, absolutely. And Auburn would be the other one I can think of, the Cam Newton year. Other than that, most of that SEC dominance, and the vast majority of it, was Nick Saban in Alabama. It straight up was. So you can't tell me that the Big Ten is top heavy and the SEC's not. It's top heavy. But most importantly, LSU, to their credit, they played USC last year, opening game of the season, and USC tried to get out of that game, and USC beat LSU. But the majority of that domination and that SEC that they all claim is Alabama. Are you a fan of your team or are you a fan of the conference? Because unless you're an Alabama fan, most of y'all weren't doing shit. Nick Saban was pushing your shit in every single season. Every single season. The only time you'd get those one-off years, Cam Newton and Auburn, Joey Burrow in LSU, Tim Tebow in Florida. You would get those years. But for the most part, it was Alabama dominating the SEC and nobody else. Got a super sticker here from Ricky Tungate. He doesn't have anything to say. He's an Indiana Hoosier fan. Indiana absolutely deserved to be in that playoff last year. I know the talking heads want to talk about how Indiana got blown out by Notre Dame or they didn't perform up to their standards against Notre Dame, and how South Carolina and Alabama deserve to be there. And, but again, South Carolina with a quarterback that allegedly is worth $8 million, according to his father. Somebody offered him $8 million to transfer. They lost to Bret Bielema in Illinois. They lost to Bert. And Illinois is a good team. And Brett's a good coach. And I've seen a lot of SEC fans talk about, well, he got his ass kicked at Arkansas. Okay, he did. And he lost his job. But the man has a history of winning at Wisconsin. And he has a history of winning at Illinois. And not only that, he's developed first-round draft picks. I mean, the man's a good coach. Thank you, Ricky, for that super chat. Let me see here. I don't know if I have anything Indiana specific, But you know what? I'm going to give them this.
Winner.
And that was legitness.
That was legitness.
Yeah, it was. Huh?
Because a lot of the mid teams in the Big Ten, guys, they're improving. Illinois, improving. Indiana, Kurt Signetti. It comes down to the hires you make. You will make some great hires that will change will turn a program around. As much as we make fun of Greg for being a Minnesota Golden Gopher with PJ Fleck with the skin type face. PJ Fleck's a good coach. Is he going to win you a national championship? No. But he'll win you 8 games. He'll win you 9 games. He'll take you to a bowl game, and he'll win the bowl game. Penn State, James Franklin has his Ohio State issue. No different than Ryan Day with his Michigan issue. But James Franklin's a good coach. He really is. Outside of the Ohio State games, James Franklin is a fantastic coach. Maryland was on the cusp. Tua's little brother left, and they kind of went downhill. Couldn't be helped. Nebraska, again. Nebraska, bad hires. Bad hires kill programs. And there was just terrible, terrible hires at Nebraska. They got rid of Bo Pelini. They bring in people like Bill Callahan. I forget the guy they brought in from Oregon State. And I think they actually gave him an extension. Mike Riley, just not a good coach. Not a fit. Will Matt Rule be that savior of the program? I don't know. I honestly don't know. I wasn't sold on it. Will Luke Fickell get his act together at Wisconsin and get that program turned around? I don't know. Don't know. I saw the Luke Fickell hire. I thought that was the best hire of the year. He immediately went into Wisconsin, tried to change the culture completely, change the system completely. No different than what Ryan Walters did at Purdue. And he had all this talent that was not used to the system, could not get used to the system, so it didn't work. Skaven, yes, says Callahan, Riley, Frost. There you go. And I'll be quite honest with you. I think they probably fired Frank Solich a little too early. Frank Solich went on to be a great coach at the University of Ohio, OU, in Athens. So LSU is better than Georgia. Debatable. Brian Kelly is a coach. I'm not sold on that still. He never could get Notre Dame over the hump. I think Marcus can get Notre Dame over the hump. I think that was a good hire. Go Black says, I don't play the conference rah-rah game. I hate the other teams in the SEC. I only root for those teams if it helps us. And that's the way to do it. And most of that rah-rah shit, it comes from the fans of the teams that aren't that great. It's, Mississippi State chanting SEC, SEC. Or bringing up the SEC, and the SEC did this, the SEC did that. Well, what the fuck did Mississippi State do? What did Mississippi State do? Vanderbilt's another one. You beat Alabama last year. Congratulations. You actually did something for the first time in 45 fucking years. I'm so fucking proud of you. Good job, Vanderbilt. You're the same ones chanting SEC, SEC. Arkansas. You had the season with Darren McFadden, Felix Jones. And then you brought in the guy from Louisville. He crashes a motorcycle with a co-ed on the back. We all know that scandal that went on there. Arkansas just can't seem to keep, they're just, they can't get it together. But Arkansas, same ones chanting SEC, SEC. I'm not chanting Big Ten. I'm not saying BIG, BIG, BIG. I'm just saying it's odd to me that the SEC claims to be the premier conference in college football. You're the premier conference in college football. You're the best in America. You won't play a ninth conference game. You won't agree to a scheduling agreement with the Big Ten to play a Big Ten challenge. Why are you so afraid of playing those teams? It doesn't make sense to me. Yeah, there's going to be times, listen, SEC, there's going to be times when you're going to play that ninth game and you're going to get upset. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. It's happened to Ohio State lots of times. And that was when it was a 4-team playoff or a 2-team BCS system, where Ohio State rolled into Purdue at night and just got taken to the woodshed. Purdue beat the shit out of them. Went into Iowa. Same situation. Ohio State and road night games, they usually don't end well unless it's at Penn State. So yeah, you're going to get those are going to happen. But if we're expanding the playoffs, if we're going to 5-11, why do you care? Just because you think, man, we could get 6 in or we could get 5 in. We just better stick with 8. That way we can get that 6th team into the playoff to maybe win. I'm sorry. It's NIL has changed the game. It has. The portal changed the game. There's more parity in college football now than ever. A Big 12 team can beat a Big 10 team. I've seen it happen. A Big 10 team can beat an SEC team. Seen it happen. An SEC team can beat an ACC team. Seen it happen. On the reverse, I've seen the ACC beat the SEC. It can happen. Why is the SEC so afraid? They're afraid. You can't give me another logical explanation other than fear. Your schools would make more money. ESPN will pay you more money for a ninth conference game. You need to have money to fill for revenue share. This is an easy solution to help boost revenue share for all 16 teams in the SEC. Especially your lower tiered teams like a Mississippi State, who may otherwise not have the ability to fund as much as other SEC schools. So it's fear. I'm sorry. It's pure fear. You do not want the smoke. You do not want to play a Big Ten team. You are afraid of playing a Big Ten team to start the season. You are afraid of playing a Big Ten team in the middle of the season. You're afraid of playing a ninth conference game against your own conference. Because God forbid you end up rolling into Vandy undefeated and Vandy beats you. Or you roll up into Mississippi State undefeated and shit goes sideways and Mississippi State beats you. But it's fear. And you can't tell me otherwise. You cannot give me a logical or rational explanation. Anybody in the chat, give me a rational explanation. I am a logical person. If you can give me a logical explanation, some kind of rationale that makes sense, I will take it back. But until you do, this is about being afraid. Tennessee won in 98, the year after Michigan split with Nebraska. Yeah, I'm talking about like the CFP era, the college football playoff. When did IU get a standard in football? Well, they hired Curt Cignetti. They made the right choice. Big Ten has won 4.5 championships since 97 and no Final Four champ in 22 years. Absolutely right. We don't put enough into our basketball programs. Two basketball programs that are tough are Indiana, Purdue, Michigan State, but we don't really put a lot into basketball here in the Big Ten. You would think adding Maryland would have helped us out a lot, but we just don't. As is 4.5 championships since 97, you're right. But how many championships have we won since NIL and the portal came in? It's not the world that Nick Saban had where he had Bagman, and we know Nick Saban had Bagman. Jimbo Fisher said he knew where the bodies were buried. And I don't doubt Jimbo Fisher. I am sure that Alabama and the teams in the South were paying players, and I'm not saying teams in the North weren't, but not to the extent that it was going on in the Southeastern Conference. I don't believe that. I just don't. And since the NIL has come along, and since the transfer portal has come along, and I'd say since revenue share, now we've got revenue share to add into it as well, the SEC is looking a little soft. 90s Florida was like the Braves, should have won more titles than they did. You could say the same thing about Florida State, the missed field goals. Steel Austin says, Big 12 fans talking smack on the SEC is hilarious. Texas Tech would finish at the bottom of the SEC without question. Again, a lot of that deals with money, though, Steel. Those Big 12 teams don't have the resources a Big 10 or an SEC team does. USC 2003, 2004, absolutely. Numbskull News says current Big Ten have way more depth than they used to. Yes, since NIL came along, since the portal came along, it's easier to get quality players. Florida or Nebraska in the 90s. Yeah, Nebraska was a tough team in the 90s. They would run all over you. James Franklin has Michigan problem too. Yeah, it's not great against Michigan, but it's not like Ohio State. I think he has 1 win against Ohio State and 9 losses. So, FSU in the 90s. We beat Nebraska in the 90s all the time. Yeah, Bobby Bowden would have had a lot more national championships if he could have just had a field goal kicker. Poor guy. Maryland was very good in the ACC when Friedgen was there in the early 2000s. I agree. They were, and they bought in Randy Edsall. And that program went right down. Right down. Florida won't be down for too much longer. Kenneth, I have to see. Do they keep him after this season if it's not a great season? Tough schedule. Nobody's going to deny the Florida Gators that. But do you keep him after this season if he doesn't produce, doesn't at least get you to a bowl game and a bowl win? They're doing a hell of a job on the recruiting trail, I'll tell you that. Fickle will fail. He might. He's at least Fickle, I will give him credit. He realized the error of his ways. He is going back to what Wisconsin can do and should do, recruiting big linemen and running the ball down people's throats. And I get it. And SEC people tell you that's boring. That's Big Ten football's boring. Well, stop it. Because I guarantee you that they'd probably run all over an SEC team. FSU, UF, Miami, every year in the 90s decided the Natty. Absolutely. Florida at the time, big power, big power. I would have bet Fickle would have continued the power. You would think so, but he tried to make Wisconsin into Ohio State, and the problem was he did not have the personnel in the locker room at the time to make it into Ohio State. And it never paid off. He could never get the guys in there, never had a really great quarterback. Obviously, the injury to the quarterback that came in last year, Van Dyke, we don't know, who's to say what would have happened, but so you got to have guys right behind them. Nebraska should have never went Big Ten. They lost their pipeline to California and Texas. Finn, I disagree with this because Nebraska was recruiting nationally anyway. Nebraska went off the tracks when they fired Bo Pelini and they brought in guys like Callahan, Riley, and Frost because Bo Pelini was an asshole. And that's the reason they fired him. He wasn't a pleasant guy. And I've met Bo Pelini, and I agree, Bo Pelini's not a pleasant guy. He's from Cardinal Mooney. He's from Youngstown. They're all tough, assholes. Listen, they're assholes, but they could motivate a team to win. Yeah, he's going to be an asshole to that linebacker, and he's going to get on him when he misses a tackle, and he's going to yell and scream and curse. But that linebacker's probably going to make that tackle next time. You bring in a guy like Riley, and it's like he's so nice. Such a nice guy. Big Ten fans writing Michigan and Ohio State. Why IU fans talking trash? Indiana made the first 12-team playoff. They do have some room to talk some trash. Now, do they have the room to go back before they hired Kurt Signetti and talk trash? They don't. They don't. I remember quite a few Indiana seasons. Indiana was usually one Ohio State game you could actually watch as long as it was at Indiana because Indiana fans wouldn't buy tickets. It was almost entirely Ohio State, and there'd be a little sliver, the student section at Indiana. Bo Pelini wasn't that bad, just had to keep a little more closed lip. Yeah, that's his problem. And like I said, he's from Cardinal Mooney. They don't shut up. You think Michigan fans were cheering for Ohio State or vice versa the year before? I can only speak for myself. I was not cheering for Michigan the year before. I was cheering for Washington. Ohio State fans will not cheer for Michigan fans. or will not cheer for the state of Michigan or the University of Michigan. True Ohio State fans. James Davis says, I will never rah-rah for Alabama no matter who plays them, even if it's Notre Dame. That's the one and only time I rah for Notre Dame. IU, first time since they did anything since the 60s. Absolutely. But, hey, they did it. They got the hire right. The guy came in his first year, had one loss during the regular season to the eventual national champion. Did he lose his playoff game? Yeah, he lost his playoff game to the runner-up of the national championship. You look at the games that Indiana won last year, they dominated them. They did. They dominated every team they played and won. They lost 2 games, one to a national champion, one to who ended up being the national champion runner-up. And they lost both of those as road games, technically. I say y'all stay at 8, play more Power 4 out-of-conference games in season. I don't know who you're talking to, Dan Davis. The Big Ten can't go to 8. We're contractually obligated now to play 9. We have to. Numbskull says, Uga and Bama fans chant SEC when they miss the college football playoff. No doubt about that. Absolutely no doubt about that. Kenneth Maynard with the $10 super chat. Thank you for popping in here, Kenneth. Appreciate the super chat. UNC stopped scheduling ECU after the Pirates put 70 on them in Chapel Hill. ACC schools tried to avoid AAC schools like the plague. And that's certainly hurt the ACC. ACC is top heavy, and they really have not done a great job building middle out. You do get, when Elko was at Duke, you get some good years for Duke football. I think Georgia Tech's on the right track, but it was the Florida State Clemson League for pretty much about 20 years there. It was pretty bad. So, yeah, but anybody can, an FBS program, look, Notre Dame was a runner-up to the national championship last year. They lost to Northern Illinois, a MAC team. A MAC team. Anybody can lose to anybody. Why be afraid? Why schedule FCS? Instead of that FCS team, put a 9th conference game in there. Make more money. Prove you deserve to be in the playoff. If you're worried about the selection committee and how the selection committee views you, the selection committee views you as a conference that plays 8 conference games and is afraid to schedule Big Ten teams. That is what you're viewed as. Outside of by the SEC people on the board, that's what you're viewed as. Bret Bielema had it 100% right. The coaches unanimously said we don't want to play a 9th conference game. We don't want to play against a Big Ten team. Again, if you've got anybody in there that you let me know. Give me a reason. Give me some kind of logic. You're playing Texas this year. You're absolutely right, and that was scheduled before Texas actually left for the SEC. That was when Texas was in the Big 12. Ohio State makes a point to play good teams. We do. We make a point to play good teams out of conference. You look at some of the out-of-conference games we've had scheduled. We've had Oregon. We've got Georgia coming up. We've got Alabama coming up. We've got Texas coming up. We've played Oklahoma twice. We do go make a point at Ohio State of going out there and scheduling the best. The reason we do that at Ohio State is because we think we're the best, and we want to schedule a tough opponent. Do we schedule a MAC team from Ohio every year? Yeah, we do. We do that because it helps benefit the schools in Ohio. It helps more kids play athletics. These MAC schools that we play every year from Ohio, when we play in Akron and you say, oh, you guys play Akron and beat the shit out of them. We do, but we play Akron, beat the shit out of them, and Akron has their athletic department basically funded for the year. Ohio State's not afraid to schedule tough teams. Wisconsin is playing Alabama this year. It's not the Big Ten teams that are ducking the tough competition. Every SEC team could play a Big Ten team every year. It could happen. Coaches don't want it. And that tells me the coaches are afraid. The Architect, it's because the SEC will be exposed. It's legal to spend on players now. Big head, big money. I agree. And I own Portal. I think it changed everything. Jose says DeBoer will get fired in a couple, and Dabo will probably get hired and rebuild. I don't think so. I think Dabo's retiring at Clemson. Just my opinion. And like I said, I've mentioned it a couple weeks back. I've got Clemson as my favorite to win the national championship. So I think he's going to retire there. They'll build a statue to him. They'll name something after him. Daniel Dilly, good to see you, Daniel. Thanks for coming in. Reason SEC won't play the Big Ten: Washington beat Texas 2 years in a row. Michigan beat Alabama 2 years in a row. You're right. They don't want the loss on their resume. But that loss could also be a win. If you have faith in the ability of your football team, if you have faith in the ability of your coaches, if you have faith in the ability of your coaching staff, if you have faith in the ability of the strength and training program, if you have faith in the ability of your athletic director, there is no reason to not schedule that team. They obviously don't have faith. An American team can beat an ACC or Big 12 team. Absolutely. There's some great teams in the American. Tulane had a great 2 seasons ago was great. Memphis has had some great teams. There's teams in the AAC that can hang. And that's probably why if the ACC does lose teams, it's probably going to be filled with teams like Memphis and Tulane and USF and some of the quality teams out of the AAC. Texas beat the dog piss out of Michigan last year, so they shouldn't be that scared. But then Michigan went and beat Alabama. So I don't know. You tell me. Again, there's no reason that we can. Northern Illinois beat Notre Dame. It can happen, but don't mistake that to mean there's any form of parity between P2 and non-P2. Massive gap. You're absolutely right. There is not parity between Power 2 and FBS. But a loss can happen to anybody, and you can recover from it. Ohio State lost twice last year. Lost on the road to Oregon with the clock running down. Couldn't stop the clock. Couldn't get the field goal kicker out there. They lost to their rival Michigan at home, a game they were favored by double digits. They lost that game. They went into the playoffs as the number 8 seed. Beat an SEC team in Tennessee. Beat them handily. Went and played Oregon in the Rose Bowl. Absolutely demolished them. Played a tough game against Texas. The strip 6 from Jack Sawyer. And then they really handled Notre Dame, but then they let Notre Dame get back into it at the end. But, you can recover from mistakes. That's what I mean. Ohio State was a 2-loss national champion last year. Notre Dame was a 1-loss national champion runner-up. What, I mean, why are you... it's the lower half that doesn't want the 9 games. Arkansas, Mizzou, UK, Auburn, Ole Miss, afraid Lane might leave and scared of not getting the bowl bid. You need 12 to vote for the 9 games. What Bret Bielema said was the coaches unanimously said no. Now, is Bret lying? Could be. Is that what Bret was told? Maybe. I don't know. I don't know how the vote went. I wasn't in the room with the coaches. But the fact that somebody is out there saying unanimously we voted no on 9 games, no on a Big Ten schedule. Go Black. If an SEC fan can give me a reason why, I would love to hear it. And I've heard that the SEC schedule's so hard that you can't play a ninth conference game. I don't think that's the case. I think every conference should play 9 conference games, including the ACC. And if Notre Dame needs to play more ACC games to make that work, so be it. James Davis says, and you can get players bet up in FCS games. Just ask FSU. Alabama plays Florida State and Wisconsin in their non-conference games. They absolutely do. And but those are out-of-conference schedules. Those are not a every year scheduling agreement. There will be years where Alabama does not have a tough game. It is actually fair right now. Do the math. 8 out of 15, 533. 917, 5, I think you mean 0.5529. We need more parity. They need to just play 2 out-of-conference Power 4 games instead, a la what South Carolina, Clemson, UGA, Georgia Tech, UF, Florida State already play. Listen, I get out-of-conference rivalry games, and I don't have a problem playing 2 Power 4 teams. I'd love to see the Big Ten get into a scheduling agreement with the SEC and the Big 12 or the ACC. I think there could be great games there. But the main point is the SEC doesn't want to schedule the Big Ten. It would make the most sense to me to have the 2 biggest, most powerful conferences, most successful conferences, have a scheduling agreement and play each other every year. Every year. Play each other. Do it. If you're that great, show me how great you are. Why are you afraid to go to 9 conference games? Why are you afraid to play a Big Ten scheduling agreement? I don't know. But because they are, we're stuck with the CFP format we have right now. It's going to be 12 games. I think at some point the Big Ten probably will approve a 5-11. But we'll see. But a 5-11, I think, benefits the Big Ten more than it does the 4-4-2-2 model they were pushing. Almighty Finn says, Indiana could have Jesus coaching, and I don't believe in them. One season doesn't mean you on top. Magical season, you're absolutely right. But we'll see how Curt Cignetti does this year. And I think he's the right guy. I think he went and put confidence into a bunch of kids that had no confidence. And he won with a MAC transfer quarterback. I mean, the game against Notre Dame, I agree, it was a terrible game for Indiana. At that first series, threw an interception, he just never could get it right. Same amount of Power 4 games total is what matters, and I'd rather see more great out-of-conference games. Stay at 8 for all we care. Just play 10 Power 4 teams. I don't disagree with that, Dan, but if you're a great conference, you play other great conferences. I want to see great out-of-conference games like Alabama, Ohio State. You know what else would be a great conference game? Missouri, Illinois. Vanderbilt, Nebraska. Diego Pavia, Nebraska's not shit. Okay. Go play at Nebraska, a place that's sold out its stadium since 1962. They've sold out every game since 1962. Go into that environment and play them. Bama's dynasty was second to the UCLA B-ball run in the 70s. Very suspect. Listen, Nick Saban, we can say all we want. You know, Jimbo came out and said he knew where the bodies were buried, but Nick Saban was a winner. He was a winner. He'd probably go down as the greatest college football coach of all time. Like it or love it. Texas squeaked past ASU. You're absolutely right. And a lot of people probably, there's that referee call that everybody's going to bring up. But yeah, I mean, SEC was killing it with them backdoor deals. Plus, they didn't snitch on one another. Hat tipped, but the game has changed. Right. I think with NIL and portal, it's changed. The new era with 16 teams will benefit teams like LSU, Auburn, PSU, USC. You don't need to go 11-1 to get in the tourney. Absolutely right. You don't need to go 11-1 to get in the tourney. Ohio State had 2 losses last year and made it into the tourney. So why duck a 9th conference game in a Big Ten game? Especially in the 12-team era. You get a chance at a bye if you beat a Big Ten. You're worried about strength of schedule. Having 9 conference games in a Big Ten scheduling agreement, most people would say would give the SEC the hands-down winning argument for having the best schedule. Strongest schedule, I should say. Ohio State's been paying players just like the SEC. You're absolutely right, but never on the level of the SEC, man. It's never been on that level. Texas trailed that whole game versus ASU. Yeah, ASU was doing good. That running back was outstanding. James Franklin has a big game problem. Yeah. But he beats the teams he needs to beat. I will give him that. You don't see a lot of upsets from James Franklin. With NIL, you cannot stake players, so your number 2 and 3 are going to other schools so they can play and not stay on the bench. That's very true. Portal. Numbskull News, SEC fans are too arrogant. I agree with that, but my point is you're arrogant based off of Alabama and mostly Alabama's success, mostly Nick Saban's success. Be arrogant when you win a national, like when LSU, when Joe Burrow won that national championship, probably the best offensive season I can recall in college football since I've been watching it. In a power league, obviously you've got that Hawaii and Ware and Houston and, all that stuff. But Power 4 wise, probably the best offensive team I've ever seen. LSU fans should be arrogant. That was a great win for them. Auburn fans don't get to claim that and be arrogant about it. You don't. MBM says Napier will be gone. Signetti showed what can be done in 1 year with the portal. Yeah, that's going to be the thing. Can Indiana hold on to Signetti? Because he obviously, you couldn't fault Kurt Signetti if a school like Florida opened up and they offered him the job. I would rather be boring and win than pretty and lose. It's true. Michigan played a boring ass game against Ohio State last year and won. Fickle had a losing record at Ohio State. He absolutely did. Absolutely did. But you know what else, Tony? Fickle was the only person to take a G5 school to the 4-team college football playoff. And that's something you can never take away from him. He took a team like Cincinnati, who was a G5 team at the time, and he got them to the 4-team playoff. Did they get their asses handed to them? They did. They were clearly an inferior team, but he got them there. So you've got to give him. You can't say that Fickle's a terrible coach because he did at least do something. Now, a lot of people will tell you Marcus Freeman is his defensive coordinator is the reason that happened, but I don't know. Again, will Fickle survive at Wisconsin? I don't know. He might not. He made a terrible mistake, and I don't think it's a mistake he can necessarily recover from. Nebraska fell off way before going to Big Ten. Dave's here. Callahan was first. Spangler says Pelini didn't win. He actually did win. He had some 8-win seasons. Compared, you take Bo Pelini's record at Nebraska and compare it to Scott Frost, Riley, Bill Callahan. Pelini was a better coach. Now, I'm not saying Pelini was going to win you a national championship, although he did have national championship credentials. He came from LSU after winning a national championship with Les Miles. So, I mean, again, if you're going to fire somebody, by all means, you can fire them, but you better get that hire right. Nothing hurts a program more than a bad hire. When did the NCAA start testing for steroids? The early 80s, I believe, when they became illegal. Yes, Nebraska did win. They were averaging 9 wins, went to the conference championship game. Tony Lush and Pelini never won less than 9 games. Yep. I mean, it's hard. I get it. It's hard. Nebraska, Tom Osborne, legend. It's hard to be the guy who goes in there and replaces a legend. Frank Solich tried. They got rid of him. It's hard when people elevate, it's hard. And sometimes programs will hold on to a coach for too long. I've always believed Ohio State held on to John Cooper for too long. Mo, when you talk about how you sold on IU because of their coach, but you got to wait and see approach for the Gators. Come on, if that ain't Big Ten bias, I don't know what is. But Billy Napier's, this is his 3rd season. Signetti went in there in 1 season and had him in the playoffs. And Billy Napier had way more talent. There was way more talent in that locker room than was in the locker room at Indiana. And they've recruited well. It's just, I don't know. Vandy didn't even make the playoff. You're right, they didn't. It's got to be more than a 1-year sample size. Well, we'll see this year because I think Chris Signetti's going to have Indiana as a bowl ready team again this year. I've got them. I think the over under I've got is 8.5 for Indiana wins. Looking at the records, why did Nebraska fire Pelini? Bo Pelini, I don't want to say bad things about anybody, but Bo Pelini is a fucking asshole. I've met Bo Pelini. He is abrasive to the nth degree. He is just an abrasive personality. That's the way he is. He doesn't hold anything back. If he thinks one thing, he is going to let you know what he thinks. In the administration at Nebraska, they were used to more soft-spoken, Tom Osborne, Frank Solich, more soft-spoken guys. They weren't ready for Bo Pelini to come in there and, when his team shit the bed on the field, he'd stand up at the podium and say, we shit the bed on the field. And they couldn't handle it. Uga fan here, and no, I don't like the other SEC schools. The SEC Natty Champ played 10 Power 4 teams in 2021 and 2022. The Big Ten Natty Champ in 2023 and 2024 only played 9 Power 4 teams. What is the problem? Because those 9 Power 4 teams they played were in their conference. You played 10 Power 4 teams. Congratulations. Absolutely. Who are those Power 4 teams? Only 8 of them were SEC teams. Play 10 Power 4 teams when 9 of them are SEC teams, and 1 of them's a Big Ten team. And then we'll talk. Again, Jansen, if you can provide me any reason why the SEC should not play 9 conference games and play a Big Ten game, Big Ten challenge, I would love to hear it. Give me a logical reason why. Other than they're afraid. They're afraid of losing. Michigan beat Ohio State and Alabama. Who did Florida State beat last year? Oh, I think they only had 2 wins, but I'd be hard pressed to remember who they were. Indiana is 11-62 versus Michigan and lost 24 in a row between 88 and 2019. I have seen 3 losses. Yeah, I mean, Indiana was shitty for a long time. Got the hire right. FYI, Pac-10 started playing 9 in like early 2000s. Big Ten not until 2016. Again, that doesn't mean the SEC, and the SEC still isn't. It's 2025. It's damn near a decade later. Why isn't the SEC playing 9 conference games? I mean, if you can give me a logical reason, I'd love to hear it. I'm begging you. VT was dominant before Clemson for many years. VT had some runs, but LSU says, we have played Oregon, West Virginia, Texas, USC, BYU. We're going to play Clemson. LSU is not afraid. We just need to win those games more. Okay, I'll give you that, Go Black. But if Bret's right, why did the LSU coach, why did Brian Kelly say, no, I don't want to play a Big Ten team? Because I know Brian Kelly's in the past said, no, we want to play those games. But then Bret's saying that the coaches unanimously voted against 9 conference games and against a Big Ten challenge. I remember Penn State dominated Auburn in both games a few years ago. Sure. Bombers here.
I love the way you say that. Like, oh boy, look who's here.
Bombers here. In case the power goes out again.
How are you doing?
I'm just ranting at the SEC, man. Diego Pavia got me fired up. And I'm just looking
always
for
a winning strategy. Mom.
Yeah, I'm just looking, and this is what I'm looking for, Bomber. I just want a logical explanation why the SEC does not want to play 9 conference games and does not want to play a Big Ten challenge.
Because they don't want the competition.
That's my point. They're afraid.
They don't want. They don't look. The SEC is not looking for equality here. Greg Sankey does not care about you. They don't care about anybody but the SEC. So that's the reason they don't want to lose. Why play a game you might lose? You're not forced to.
But there's, the Big Ten wants to do it. The Big Ten plays 9 conference games.
Yeah, but the Big Ten has an incentive to play the SEC. What's the SEC's incentive to play the Big Ten?
Absolutely. If you're the best of the best and you want strength of schedule to matter, how much better can your strength of schedule look than having 9 conference games and a Big Ten challenge game?
Well, that part, there's no disagreement. I think if the SEC added a 9th game, they could easily continue to claim that they are the best conference. I don't know why they don't. To me, it's obvious they should, but
absolutely. It would put in, they argued the strength of schedule. They didn't get a better strength of schedule. Okay, play an extra conference game, play a Big Ten team. That's 10 P4 games. One against, we can argue back and forth who's number 1 and number 2. Those are the top 2 conferences.
Yeah.
So
I mean, we can't. That's not really up for argument.
If strength of schedule is your argument that, well, we need to change the strength of schedule and go to 5-11. Well, okay, play a 9th conference game and play a Big Ten challenge.
But if you're South Carolina, do you want to play 9 games? I don't think you do.
Oh, I don't think anybody.
They played 8 last year and they got frozen out.
According to Bret Bielema, the coaches voted unanimously not to play 9 conference games.
The SEC coaches.
The SEC coaches. They also
unanimously. Yeah,
voted.
They don't think they need the competition, Mullen.
That's my point of view.
I'm agreeing with you. Yeah.
I just want a logical explanation from anybody in the SEC country to tell me different. Why? Wrong one. Well,
hi, Nathan. Who's that?
There we go. From Bielema, we voted unanimously as Big Ten coaches to stay at 9 and actually maybe have an SEC challenge. I was told that the SEC coaches voted unanimously to stay at 8 and not play the Big Ten. But then some people pop off and say what they want to say. So according to Bret Bielema, I was told that the SEC coaches voted unanimously to stay at 8 and not play the Big Ten.
Yeah, what's going to change the paradigm, Moen?
I don't know, but it's hard for me. And I'm sure SEC fans give me all the shitty comments you want in the comment section. I'll read them. I'll reply to them. I promise. But the argument that the SEC is the best conference in America is a hard argument to make when you won't play 9 conference games and you won't play a Big Ten challenge.
So let's talk about broadcasters. They're the ones who drive the bus, right? College football playoff is owned by ESPN. ESPN owns the ACC and the SEC. If they look at those two conferences and they say, look, we're making just enough money with these conferences, why do we need a 9th game when we could potentially be killing our product at the end of the day by giving them an additional loss? They want as many SEC teams. They don't care about the ACC, but they want as many SEC teams in as possible. If you don't play that 9th game, you have the potential to have 6, 7, 8 teams in the playoff every year.
You do, but then you can't make the strength of schedule argument.
I think that's a red herring. I don't think he even cares about that. Greg Sankey, I don't think he cares.
Strength of schedule. The whole argument is, well, we've got strength of schedule. Well, if you play 8 conference games, you haven't played anybody decent from the P4. You don't have the strength of schedule argument.
I don't think they need it. Let's look at it a different way. You're the Big Ten, right? And Fox is your partner with NBC and CBS. And you want to get as many teams in the playoff as possible. Do you want to play an SEC team? You do, don't you? The SEC doesn't look at it the same way. They don't care if they play Michigan State. They don't care if they play Purdue, Iowa. The SEC doesn't care at all. So one needs it. The other one doesn't care to need it.
If the other one wants to go to 5-11, which the other one claims to do,
right,
they can go to 9 conference games,
right,
and that would immediately, the Big Ten would approve 5-11.
Yes,
we could be at 5-11 today.
Yes,
today.
Yeah.
If the SEC would play 9 conference games, the SEC will not do it, and they will not do it because they're afraid of competition.
Yeah, I think they're afraid to lose.
They're afraid to lose. They're afraid that at some point a dominant Alabama team's going to roll in and lose to a Vanderbilt.
Yes.
Ole Miss is going to lose the Egg Bowl to Mississippi State and have an extra loss.
Yeah.
But, the point of view I put out there is Ohio State won the national championship with 2 losses. One to an unranked team they were a double-digit favor over.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean,
yeah, I don't care. To me, it's all business, and the SEC doesn't think they need you.
Okay, the Big Ten scheduling, we can just even 86 that. Just 86 that. We'll just forget about that right now. The 9 conference games.
Yeah.
I don't think having a 9 conference games is going to cost you a playoff spot.
Well, I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I don't think in a 12-team playoff, because I know that this committee is going to favor Big Ten and SEC teams. They always have. They always will. Well, whether it's fair or not, we can make the argument last year, BYU deserved to be in over SMU.
Yes.
Why wasn't BYU allowed in?
Well, there's lots of reasons.
Well, because they favored a Texas school and SMU.
I don't know if it's Texas as much as I think that they they weren't given as much credence. But I think that's more of a Big 12 problem than it is anything else. At the end of the day, the Big 10 and the SEC have all the cards. They're going to get a majority of the picks, whether you give them to them or not. 4-4-2-2, 3-3-3, whatever you do, those two conferences are going to get a majority of the schools in anyway.
Regardless.
Go to 16, go to 9 games in your conference, and just be done. Let's turn the page. I can't believe we're still talking about this, to be honest.
And, again, this comes down today. We find out we're basically staying as is. We might get some change towards the end of the year. We could be at 5-11 right now.
Yeah. Well,
people are making the argument that it's the Big Ten's fault we're not at 5-11.
Who is?
Lots of people. They're saying, well, the Big Ten's holding out and they won't give us 5-11.
Oh, you're talking about the playoff format, not
right,
the
playoff
game.
format.
Oh, okay,
right,
sorry.
right.
Yeah, I thought you were talking about the 9th game.
Okay. The Big Ten screwing everything up by not giving us 5-11. The SEC's screwing it up by not going to 9 conference games.
Who has the bigger megaphone, Moen? The SEC.
Oh, SEC, yeah. Clearly,
yeah.
ESPN has a huge megaphone.
And Fox isn't doing a ton to really benefit the Big Ten. I mean, here's
the thing.
What do you hear out of Foxland?
Well, Fox Sports is just so small compared to ESPN.
I think that's the point. They're saying they don't have to play 9 games. We're still going to get what we want.
But if they play 9 games, ESPN already has to pay them more money. If you're looking for revenue share money to pay your players, why not take the 9th game? Why not get the extra money from ESPN? If you played a Big Ten Challenge game, ESPN would pay those teams more money to get those Big Ten SEC matchups on ESPN. That would happen.
Yeah.
So there's a financial incentive for these SEC teams. The only logical reason, the only rationale I can come up with, they're scared.
Scared. They just don't want another loss on there. I don't know that scared is it. They just don't want to deal with another loss and what it says to the unfortunately we're dealing with polls still. We're dealing with these committees. Let's throw all that out. Let's go back to BCS, publish the formula, tell everybody what it takes to get in and qualify for the playoff, and be done with it. There's so many solutions, Mo, and we've covered this for years, that would immediately change the dynamic. We'd be talking football again. Play 9. Everybody plays 9 conference games. Everybody. Every conference plays 9 conference games.
The ACC, Notre Dame can schedule more ACC teams to accomplish that.
Even Notre Dame would end up benefiting from that. I think they'd get more money as well. But at the end of the day, they don't think they need to. So why give in? At this point, I think it's posing by Greg Sankey too. He's already gone out and he's said from a pulpit, we're not going to do this. And so I think it's all ego at this point. It's not reason.
I don't know if it's ego. I don't know how you could have an ego.
Greg Sankey? Are you kidding me?
I understand he could have an ego, but I don't understand how he has an ego after the last 2 years.
Well, I mean, he wants more teams in the playoff. He doesn't want 3 teams to be left out again like last year.
Right. And I mean, he could have more teams in the playoff if he would go to 9 conference games.
Maybe. Or you open the door for more, maybe a Rutgers has a run and goes 10-2 and they get in over a 9-3 Ole Miss or Mississippi State or South Carolina. I mean, there is that chance. The nightmare scenario for the SEC is the Big Ten gets in more teams than the SEC
but
does.
if you're the SEC, you could also take that Big Ten challenge and schedule against that Rutgers team and give them one of those losses, and the SEC could be viewed as a stronger conference.
Or you play Morehead State and don't worry about it.
Yeah, exactly.
In November.
And yep.
Have a double, triple bye week, right? This is not rocket science. There's a reason.
Iron sharpens iron. The SEC, and I'm sorry, SEC fans, It to me, it just seems soft.
Wow. Are you here? Who are you hearing from? You're hearing from SEC people?
But no, I'm hearing from Bret Bielema. He says the coaches unanimously said we want to stay at 8 games.
Right.
We want to play. We don't want to play a Big Ten team.
I got it.
They don't want the smoke.
I
They don't want the
understand.
smoke. They don't want the smoke. And in my opinion, if you're the best conference in America, you show it. You're not afraid to take anybody on.
Well, that's fair enough. I mean, it's an argument that everybody. I just don't get it. Go to 9 games, be done with it. I don't understand.
We could be at 5-11 today, guys.
Yeah.
Today. All the SEC has to do, they don't even have to do the Big Ten Challenge. All they need to do is go to 9 conference games. At 9 conference games, the Big Ten, Tony Petitti would give them 5-11. He would give it to them.
So let me ask you this. There was word out, Ross Dellinger, I think, put it out today, that said the only way an agreement happens on the CFP is if it's unanimous. Did you see that?
But that's not correct.
That's not what we were led to believe.
Right.
We were led to believe that the voting shares, 12%, 17%, whatever that is,
right.
between the A4, they were the ones that really could dictate what would happen. Well, that's not what Ross Dellinger came out and said. No, that's they actually said whenever they get together to do this thing, it's going to have to be unanimous. So we were told one thing, we're hearing something different.
Spiritually unanimous, maybe, where they're going to say, oh, we want everybody to agree, or technically unanimous, where the legality of it does say the Big Ten and the SEC together have enough to control the format of the CFP.
Well, we know that, but isn't it in the Big Ten's best interest to work with the Big 12 and the ACC?
Absolutely, and I agree. The Big 12 and the ACC should be pushing the SEC to 9 conference games.
Problem is the ACC is the SEC, and they'll never do that. That was a parenthetical question. I was just bringing it up because a lot of the stuff we've been told about the CFP, the way the structure was supposed to work, we were told it was all these voting shares and everything else, but really it's not. It's the ACC and the SEC versus everybody else, essentially. And there's not enough votes there to get anything done. There's no way the ACC votes against the SEC's best interest. It will never happen.
Until shit gets weird.
Give me one way that the ACC does something to hurt the SEC in any way, shape, or form.
Shit'll get weird.
I don't know what that means, but that's okay.
I can't say any more than that. I'm sorry. Shit'll get weird.
I just think there's a lot of assumptions we made over the last several years that things could go this way, this could go that way. Voting, everybody can use their power to sway votes and all these other, and I don't think it's come to any of that. I think what we're finding out is it's the SEC world, and everybody else is just living in it, and that's just the way it's going to be.
Well, then it's going to stick at 12 games. That's
the
way it's going to be. If you're going to stay at 8 conference games, there's no reason to change it.
It is possible that happens.
Yeah. So, Big Ten wants to go on a challenge. Big Ten coaches apparently approve it. ADs approve it. Fox approves it. Big Ten, they're not shaking when they put their shoes on in the morning, but I'm sorry. You're right. They don't want to lose. But to me, you don't want to lose. You're scared. You're scared of the extra loss. Okay.
What's funny is, though, you and I don't even think the loss would matter.
It wouldn't.
It wouldn't matter. I don't think the extra loss is going to matter at all.
A loss would matter maybe 1 out of 50 times.
Yeah, not very often.
Not very often.
No,
not very often.
The SEC is, got this perception that they're infallible. Essentially, they can do whatever they want, and nobody's going to really hold them account. Josh Pate said today if the SEC went to 9 games, it would essentially shut the door on anything else that happens within the CFP. Their strength of schedule would dominate, and really didn't matter what anybody else did, including the Big Ten. The SEC would get that benefit of the doubt. If that's true, if that ends up being the case, then what are we even doing here? Let's just give them the championship every year. It's ludicrous.
Well, and that's the thing. They're afraid of being exposed. And I forget who said it in the chat earlier, but they were correct. They are afraid of being exposed.
Yeah.
Last year, USC, LSU. USC did try to weasel out of the game. USC beat LSU. But last year, Texas went up to Michigan and dominated Michigan. So I don't know what the fear is about, other than being exposed. Being exposed.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to see. I just wanted to stop in and say hi. Tomorrow night, me and Fergie are going to do a show on public-private partnerships. If anybody cares, that'll be at 8 p.m. Eastern time. Lots of money is entering college football, as we know. And I got a question for you. What do you think about this whole idea that Florida essentially has led to an untapped resource that they can just spend as much money as they want to from the taxpayers, and essentially frees up all their boosters to only spend on NIL now? And it's all taxpayer subsidized. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if that's going to get challenged.
By who?
Well, everybody.
It's a state law.
It's a state law, but I mean,
yeah.
if House gets codified in the federal,
If,
then the federal would supersede the state law, if I'm not mistaken. And then you
not
would have
necessarily.
to go. You would have to go fight it out in court, obviously,
Right.
and it would get into the federal circuit here and federal circuit
Right.
there and all that bullshit.
Right.
But it would. I think that would be the case, for that. But I think that's
the likelihood. Look, ASU got $51.7 million a year and a half ago to bail out their athletic department. That's one school, $51+ million. Arizona got another $20 million or something like that. These state universities can spend and spend and spend. It's bottomless. And what does that do? Everybody says, well, who cares? The money shifts from here to here. What does it really matter? The reason it matters, and everybody should be paying attention to this, is that if you relieve the stress from the boosters by subsidizing the athletic department with tax money, now boosters, all they can spend on is NIL. Not can, but all they would spend on is NIL.
well.
There's no reason to put into facilities. There's no reason to put into anything else. And now boosters can spend, essentially, you come up with a good justification. You can make any NIL payment work.
That's not the way I understood it. That operating revenue money could not come from boosters. The rev share.
Boosters donate to the programs all the time.
Right, but there was something in the House bill, and you can check with the consigliaries guys, that says that booster money can't go to rev share. That rev share has to come through athletic department funds that have to be tracked, and it can't just be a booster paying every year $22 million to get that rev share.
That may be the case, but it's unlimited now. You're saying the state tax people.
You're saying the state, but
underwrite the entire athletic expense.
Sure, but at the same time, you got to remember, Nate, Mike Norvell is paid by the state of Florida.
So
Billy Napier is paid with taxpayer money too.
Right.
So I mean, it's not like taxpayer money isn't already directly involved in college athletics on a public school level.
Well, it is that may obviously that's true, but that doesn't mean that it's been a fountain of unlimited wealth either.
No, and I'm not saying it's right or it's wrong, but I'm saying it's just the next step that people would do this. I mean, I don't think Ohio State will do this, obviously, because Ohio State's not hurting for the money like,
Well, I
these
don't
Florida
know. Didn't
schools
Ohio State
probably
send
are.
out one of those letters saying we need money?
Ohio
Just like
State
Oregon
sends,
didn't?
Ohio State sends that letter out every 2 weeks.
But you get my point, though. The point is that this money coming from tax coffers is essentially underwritten to an infinite degree.
Sure.
There's no
absolutely.
state legislators that's going to say, sorry, we're just not going to pay the bill for X state
I agree.
university.
I agree. Hey,
So
Ryan,
if that doesn't imbalance, because that's sort of broken the norm. That has not been the case in history past. State universities had to run a very strict system of money coming in and going out. Universities generally don't make money. But now basically what you're saying is that they don't even have to try to balance the books, because anything that is in arrears, the state will just make up for. Florida State essentially said, you can take as much money as you want to that is coming into the program and turn around and re-spend it ad infinitum. And you think that's not going to go across America? And I don't think House is going to get codified.
Well, that's the thing. We've got to
I don't
figure
think
out if House
Congress
is
is
getting
going to do
codified. But
anything with House.
that ultimately comes down to the taxpayers and voters in the state of Florida.
Well, or, any state that's actually
Any
playing
state, right? But right
top
now it's
tier
Florida. So I
athletics.
mean, obviously, if you're running and you say, "Hey, I don't think it's right that all public universities can just basically take $80 million out of our taxpayer coffers every year for football when we can't afford to, jail rapists." I mean,
Right.
people are going to make that argument. I'm a fiscal conservative myself. I would make that argument.
Well, yeah, right. What I think is ironic, and I know Ute's not here to defend himself, but I'm going to bring up Ute. Ute has been very clear about NIL and boosters and BYU, right? But if tomorrow the state of Utah passed a law, just like Florida did, that the University of Utah can spend as much as they want to on their athletic department, specifically football, to be competitive, that money, where does it end? And you know what? If I was you, I'd be cheering for it too. I'd be happy as a lark if I could just spend into the future. It doesn't really matter. But who's going to run for Congress that is going to say I'm against Florida State football? There's no way that person gets elected.
I hear you, because you can't run as I'm running against Florida State football. You got to run as I'm running against taxpayer waste.
But then you vote against it, and what happens? You get thrown out the next time you're up for election.
Maybe that's
we're a debt service country right now.
I agree with you. I believe in balanced budgets. I'm a fiscal conservative. I would balance every damn budget. I would make it mandatory. I wouldn't let them loot Social Security, but it's not up to me. I don't keep passing these huge spending bills. If the state of Florida, if the voters of Florida want to let their taxpayer dollars go to pay for that instead of some other service that would be better than college football, because at the end of the day, college football is a game.
Right? I mean, this is passionate for us. We enjoy the sport. This is cool. We love competition. All these things that are good and that are based on merit that the United States is sort of built on. Now what we're becoming is essentially socialized athleticism.
Right.
You have state universities that are dropping athletics. Washington State University got rid of all not their track, but all their field stuff. So shot put, anything that was on the field, they're no longer doing. Washington State is running in arrears, and yet they're subsidizing University of Washington left and right with money to be competitive in the Big Ten. They're both in the same state, and yet one has a lot of political clout, the other one does not. So how is this justified? How can we look at the entire system and say, this is I'm okay with this? Steele was just put a comment. He goes, they're going to pass that law in Utah, and it's glorious. That sounds fun, and it's fun to say in a message on a YouTube show. But at the end of the day, your tax dollars are going up.
Right, and it's Well,
Everybody's
it's not
tax
even
dollars
that
going
your
up.
tax dollars may not even go up. Your taxes may not go up, but it's going to shift that money from something that might be
Social
important.
services.
Yeah.
Homeless
I mean,
people. Healthcare.
we
Let's talk
might
about
need
stuff that really matters.
law enforcement, fire, all these
Right.
great things that the government provides. Infrastructure, your
Thank you.
roads.
Yeah, hey.
But it's going to go towards and it's going to be for every public university.
It is. It is. Every state-run university is
every
going to get
public
the same level.
university.
I agree with that.
And that's going to be a hell for Texas. Texas is going to be running $1 billion
Pretty soon.
taxpayer fund for public universities. I'm with you. I'm against it, but at the end of the day, when it comes to Ohio, I'll stand up and say I'm not voting for that. I'm voting against anybody who is voting for that.
Well, I just think these are things that people aren't paying attention to. It's easy to pay attention to realignment. It's easy to pay attention to House and revenue share and all this other stuff. But these big news items that come out, like this thing in Florida today, people are just short of shrugging and going, you know what, this is just the way it is. And at what point do we say enough's enough? What is enough, right? When is enough enough?
Well, again, the only way you're going to be able to supersede that is to codify House.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen.
And get the federal government to actually step in and say, hey, don't do that. But then again, the federal government they raid Social Security every month.
I know. It's a joke.
It's just bullshit. So,
meanwhile, there's real things happening in the world, right? I mean, we have wars happening. We have people dying left and right. All these things that are, we could do something about. Instead, we decide to spend our tax dollars on what are essentially throwawayisms. Whoever wins the national championship, that is not going to change your life. At the end of the day, your family and where you're going to end up is going to be based on how your tax burden is and how much debt we are in. And right now, I think we're running like a $6 trillion debt, something like that in the United States. And here we are spending money to win football games. I saw that today, and I know a lot of people just, it's just the way it is. When is enough? And I don't know. I think it's a big deal. Not a lot of people paying attention to it because it's not sexy, but I think it's a big deal.
Steel Austin says my taxpayer dollars are going up by a few bucks, and it's the best money spent, in my opinion.
Yeah, okay. That's great. We already have issues where I live. There's other social services and things we could be spending money on. It's not so Utah can go out and recruit XYZ player because they have this high profile and all this other stuff. I just don't think.
I agree with you. I think it's frivolous. It's frivolous spending, but again, the voters have to stand up.
Yes, that's exactly right. It does. It has to come.
The voters have to stand up and say no. And you're right. People in Florida probably won't stand up and say no because Florida State and Florida have huge followings, huge fan bases. You've also got UCF, USF.
They're all going to be, and every one of those schools is going to be debt spending.
Yes.
UCF is going to be debt spending. University, what's the Florida Atlantic is going to be debt spending. Every one of those universities and the state of Florida is going to end up subsidizing programs. Everybody can't win the national championship every year. In fact, not every team can even compete for a national championship every year. And yet your tax dollars are going to go to build these programs up. To what end? So they can go 8-4 in the Big 12?
Justin R. is claiming it's not tax dollars being used.
Really?
So where's the money coming from, Justin?
Well, it's diverting. Specifically, what he's saying is money that's coming in, revenues from selling tickets, from selling jerseys, all these things that used to be underwritten for the athletic department. They used to run historically. Athletic departments did not make money. They were debt losers. They were right almost net zero. You would make money, you'd spend money, but you stayed about constant. Now you're going to have these state universities that are going to take money that was going to be used for other purposes. I don't care what it originally was supposed to be intended to go to. It's going to the programs to just keep them on life support so they can compete in whatever conference they happen to be in. Those things used to pay for other stuff. It's not invisible. Money isn't just created from nowhere. It doesn't go poof, right? If the money came in from something, it goes into something else. There is it is a what is it? It's a net zero. You go up, you go down. You go up, you go down. That's how it works.
So, as Friends Call Me Sean said, the Florida agreement allows funds to come from auxiliary funds up to $22.5 million, not from state funding. Auxiliary funding comes from parking, room and board, fees, etc.
Where did that money used to go, Justin? It used to go somewhere. Where did it used to go? What isn't it paying for now?
I would imagine if it's auxiliary funding, it probably went to education.
Okay, so now what
Whatever that
happens?
is.
Now you have less education funding. Where does that money go?
Yeah,
I'm just telling you, it's like playing piano. You put a key down, you're going to get a sound. If you put all the keys down, you're going to get a sound. But at the end of the day, when you take them off, there's no sound. And this is basically what we're talking about here is money that was going to go to something else is now being diverted. That's the word. It's being diverted to something else.
repurposed.
Okay, whatever. You know what I mean. You know exactly what I'm saying. So you can call it whatever you want. Justin, I'm not arguing with you. I'm frustrated with the fact that they came out and they said they're going to take money that was supposed to be going for other things, and they're now able, through some other means, to push it towards the athletic departments to subsidize their spending. It doesn't just come out of nowhere. It doesn't just get created unless you're the federal government and they just print more money.
Yeah.
Money has to come from somewhere, and if it's not there, it's going to something else. So
there you go. Well, you can talk. You're going to talk to Fergie about that tomorrow, right?
I don't know what we're going to talk about. It depends how much energy I have. I'm pumped up today about that. I thought that was just stupid, and yeah, I appreciate you letting me come on for a little bit.
I was on fire about Diego Pavia, and
what a joke that was. That guy loses to Georgia Southern or something and comes
Georgia
on
State.
and whatever.
Georgia State, the team that finished next to last in the Sun Belt Conference.
Dude is a poser.
Yeah.
He is going to be a washout in the NFL. He's
not making it to the NFL.
He will. He'll be like on the backup of the backup or something. He'll make it on some team to do. He's not that good. Pavia, that he just cracks me up.
He's looking for that SEC network job.
Yeah,
he's going to ride that.
The SEC is the NFL.
Yeah, he's going to ride that victory against Alabama for the rest of his life.
Right. You know? Well, I guess you can take it where you can take anyway. I appreciate it. You guys are great. Obviously, the best show we have around and best channel, and appreciate everybody being here. Thanks for spending some time with Moen tonight, and yeah, we'll see you tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern.
All right. Okay. Everybody tune in tomorrow night for Bombers Blitz with Bomber and Fergie. Should be a good time. Be talking about partnerships and yelling at Florida.
Yes, let's do more of that. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye, Moen.
Right. Thanks, Bomber.
You bet. See ya.